Good morning, and like we told you earlier on when we were beginning the show with Wahiga, there is a lot of emotions going around because of the World Cup. People who are passionate about it, those who are losing bets, those who have bet on the wrong team. It's the year of the underdog, I dare say. And so out of that, there might have been a lot of anger that might have arisen from that. We want to, of course, on Inspiration Monday, want to talk about how you can deal with anger. Can you channel it perhaps to do, for you to do better things? Do you get angry to work? And of course, we are joined by Welly Odendo. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
As always. And right from the top, I'd like to say I've been reading this book. You must get a copy of it. It's Breaking the Back of Luck, and he'll tell us how we can get copies of it and where we can find. And he's working on a new one as well. But that aside, we were challenged by over the weekend by one Jeff Coinage or Jeff Coinage to write more books. So I'm also looking into it. But let's get into the topic today. Anger. And I was saying in the morning that even the Bible recognizes that you will get angry.
Yes.
It only says that you do not sin. So I guess let's put it in different sections. So there are those who, let's start with relationships, because I guess that's the biggest of them all, where you have anger issues coming from a previous relationship or even relationships in the family, whatever. But how do you deal with anger, especially anger baggage? Yes.
Thank you very much, Willis. Thank you for getting the memo.
Yeah, you know what it is, man. We are here in our jeans and everything. Inspiration Monday, boom.
Anger in itself is actually a symptom of another emotion. It's never the primary emotion. It's the secondary emotion. You find that for many people, when we are talking about anger, it's as a result of another trigger. But many a times, we think that the trigger is the one which has caused the anger. But it's not the one which has caused the anger. The trigger has addressed the main problem and what we call like our core hearts or our core areas of pain, which are the core areas of need. Affirmation, attention, acclamation, core areas of needs, appreciation, which are our core areas of needs. And whenever those areas of needs are being targeted, we lose the feeling of what we call our balance and control. And so when we talk about people wanting to deal with anger, instead of talking about dealing with anger, maybe we should turn it a bit and say, how do we direct our anger so that it does not control us? Because anger is either two things. It's either driving or it's a passenger. If it moves from the passenger and becomes the driver, it's destructive. But if it remains as a passenger, it can give you a war sign that somebody has crossed a boundary, because it helps us to know somebody has crossed, in its healthy state, it helps us to know when somebody has either crossed a boundary or violated a core value or is violating a core need or not playing their primary role. But when it moves from now becoming a passenger to becoming a driver, it now goes and now breaks boundaries, because it turns itself, because of its presence, it turns itself into a right. Because I am angry, I have a right to. So something I like actually the way you've put it, something as supposed to be entertaining like football. Right. So it's supposed to be an entertainment match, but it ends up becoming a wrecking match. The remote is on the screen. Yeah. Why? You are disappointed. It's not the ball, the game, it's the thing is the disappointment you feel at that particular moment. Why are you disappointed? Either you had an investment or emotional attachment to the team. None of Kenya is not in the match. So probably you are supporting, who are you supporting?
Ubelgiji.
And Portugal. So you're supporting Cristiano Nadamu, then that's the day he misses the penalty.
Exactly.
So you have to survive the shame of coming to the office and now people making fun of you for whom you support. So you discover the anger is because of the fear of shame. You're angry because now you're going to have to deal with the shame.
Now I understand Arsenal fans.
So it's the shame.
I get
you
it.
Get how they feel. It's the shame that makes them angry. So because of the core need and the core heart is the shame. So this anger is the secondary expression that I'm angry at the loss because now I have to live a whole day and face people who know my position. Dealing with the shame is the biggest problem. So you find that those are the core areas of heart. And when people are afraid of shame, they will easily get angry.
Before we move, so you're talking about addressing the deeper issue.
The deeper issue.
There's something you talk about in this book, and I'd just like to see if it can relate. Something about, you talk about the I a lot.
The I,
and
people like that a lot.
And correcting your vision.
There's
something here that you said, and I want to, it's from page 29. It's about wealth, yes, but it's about leaving your comfort. You say to correct your I, you must be willing to move into the new and unfamiliar territory.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, is the anger sometimes people feel because they're not willing to, take that extra to deal with
themselves.
Sometimes we know what the issue is, but we don't want to deal with. We want to correct our sight.
Because I say the deeper need for man is attachment. We go up building attachments, and you cannot attach unless you detach. And so people struggling, even like if you date a woman or date a man who had a very difficult, toxic relationship, when they come in, the fear that they will be hurt. So you wake up in the morning and you do something, the trigger you trigger is the person who last hurt them. And because they have not yet detached from the previous relationship, yet they are trying to attach into a new relationship, the chances they gave the last person, they will not give you. You'll come and say a genuine, oh, sorry, I didn't see that. And they'll think you're not taking it as seriously as they thought. So the problem is that, as you're saying, they're struggling to move to the new because they're still attached to the old. And why are they attached? The primary need is what? Fear. They fear it can happen again. And all you can see, what anger is trying to do is trying to put you in control in an area you're not in control. Like a football match, you're not in control. In a marriage, you're not in control of your wife. In the office, you're not in control of your boss. For us to be here, I leave the house very early in the morning because I've discovered this city can make me die of more than one disease. Hypertension, heart attack, and if not careful, I can get out and be punched in the face because of road rage. You are not in control. Nairobi has traffic. You're not in control. So what is it? Every time, it's not that you fear the traffic. You fear the madness of the kind of traffic this city has. You will lose time. Somebody, watuanganya hukufanya na kuingia. So what happens? Because you have not detached from the fact that, what if since I cannot control watu wa 3 asubuhi, and I cannot control the learners who live late instead of leaving early so that they can learn when the road is empty. So I put myself in a place whereby I put myself in an environment I'm trying to control, and yet I have no control. So what does that do? It makes me relapse to my old mode. How did I used to deal with people when I'm not in control? I would try to muscle up my courage and try to push the other person because I have this deficit. So as you're saying that, moving away, detaching from that moment is the best way of dealing with anger. If I come and unakuaga down, if that down reminds you of the first time you had it, maybe you had it from your mom or I may just have said it now 20 years later. But if you never detached from the first person, it triggers. So the primary emotion is a figure of authority abandoned you. So this word down now does not mean, it's just talking. The next thing I hear is that there's a flying tip and I'm trying to find my eyeballs because I can't find my... So it's that tension. How do we help people detach? That's why even our politics become very emotive because the politician has invested resources, he has heightened the emotion of the people. When he loses, politics is a career pursuit. The way you pursue to be a bank manager, I pursue to be an MP. Should I go for an interview and not get it? I don't go up and stir up people if maybe I'm looking for a job in a bank. From now on, let us not bank there. They rejected me. No. You have to detach so that you can now get to the next phase of your life. But because we attach everything, we are so attached from who we are as children, when we were first rejected, who we first loved and never treated us right. We come with that into any new phase without detaching. And we become, you left a toxic relationship, now you become the toxin itself.
Yeah. So how do you then, and we'll start again with relationships, in terms of, in the whole marriage relationships, how do you then deal with the anger? I mean, because some people are just generally, you walk on eggshells. So how do you deal with, something like that?
I think the first stage is identifying what is the core area of hurt. The core area of hurt could be abandonment. The core area of hurt could be lack of affirmation. The core area of hurt could be attached, or you found yourself, you are attached to events that happened in your previous life. And these core areas has created a sense of feeling inferior. And so you are ever psychologically under pressure to prove to yourself that I am not inferior. So you find that you get easily jealous. I have found, people are surprised, that most comedians have got the highest forms of temper. They're very temperamental, and you wonder, wow, I'm funny. If you sit around them outside their craft, they're not the funniest people. Most of us public speakers, we can do this and psych you up, but if somebody comes and sits around us and discover you are so much edgy, why is it that public figures are more edgy when you sit with them privately? It has nothing to do with them being public figures. It's that now when you're dealing with them as human beings, the kind of pressure they put on themselves to deliver, they are ever angry of falling short. So that pressure, it creates for you a core need when you're dealing with a public figure or when you're dealing with any leader. He's under pressure to perform. So what is the core need? Shame. He fears shame. And so anytime you put him under shame, he feels as though you have touched a corner. Everything we work hard to do is so that I don't shame myself. So public figures, and that's why now newspapers and gutter press knows that. So what do? They go to the shame bin for public figures, because now you are playing around a core area where your breakup is important, your divorce is important. So the first stage is that you have to identify what is my core heart. And all of us have a different core heart.
And even as you do that, even before you go to the next step, is it always easy to see? Because, unlike maybe you hang around me and you're like, Willis, I think this area
is your core heart.
But is it easy for me to sit and just see it myself?
Most of the times you can't even see it. Most of the times, because for some people, maybe this is the first time they're hearing it. They know, some of us, we even form now what we call a coping mechanism, so that we justify our actions of anger. So you're trying to make
do right there.
You know how we are. And have you ever had people say, it's not that kijam, it's you put the anger in control to the point that you don't know how to now detach yourself from the trigger of your anger in that moment of anger. So it's never easy for you to identify yourself. This is, unfortunately for us, especially we who live in Africa, we are so much under the pressure of life. The way we take time to bathe, we never take time to debrief. We never debrief our souls. So it's the first time most of us even but we never go for debriefing to bathe our souls. If you ask anybody here, who has ever just taken time to go see a psychologist? You're not sick, kwani nimechizi. I'm dealing with all
and that's the thing, psychology is always equal to
kuchizi. If you say, but then I'm just going to listen to me, and it doesn't have to be about counseling, about work. I just want to go and speak and help him to help me define myself.
A sounding board.
A sounding, So we don't have that here, because we think, hiyo nimechizi, sasa nendoko kudu. Kwani nina maisha zaje? So what do? We go to the club, we go driving, we go walking around. So we keep this unresolved and identified anger in us, and so we keep repeating the same flashes. So actually for me, it's the hardest thing for you to identify your core need, which almost forms your core heart. It's the hardest to identify. But once you identify it, then you begin to know, even if you're going to form a relationship, you're going to, your partner or your spouse will begin to identify. I think the core area of heart for my husband or my wife is this. So I don't, maybe for him it's not affirmation, maybe for him it's abandonment. He fears being abandoned. So I must not create a sense of abandonment for him. For some of them, they don't like prolonged absence. But some, they're just okay. They don't mind it. They're just okay. They can function in prolonged absence. But for some, it's a core need. So I think that's the first area. How do you have to identify it? And the people who can help you identify it, some of you either need to see a pastor to help you identify it, or psychologist. Just take yourself there and for once sit down and let somebody just do a forensic
on you. Again, I want to borrow from the book again. I'm very proud of myself. There is one of the fears you talk about, three fears, but the most important one is what you also talked about, you know, the fear to be ridiculed. And you've talked about it here. I've also had TDJs talk about it in terms of whenever, say I've got to that point where I'm vulnerable and I want to talk to you about this, I have an issue with anger because of ABCD. And then now you turn around and say, oh, you're good to do. Because your mom said, Leo ndo unaleta hii shida. So how do you deal with how do you deal with that? Do I still talk about it hata kama utanicheka? Because like you said, already you're afraid of the shame. It's part of the reason, the trigger for the So how do you deal with like the fear of ridicule?
I think when it comes to ridicule, unfortunately we barely form relationships that are meaningful. We form occupational relationships. So if you want to deal with, especially with the fear of ridicule, you must make the person whom you are getting vulnerable with, or the people whom you are having that exchange, must be a person whom you are having a meaningful relationship with. If you take at the first breaking point or the first shaming point, and you go and talk to somebody whom you simply have an occupational relationship, like I am here and there are cameramen behind there, this is an occupational relationship. If I leave here and tell them something about me, they will either trivialize it, and because they are not emotionally invested in me enough to be sensitive to who I am, according to them is, but you did your job, and as long as we get you ready to do your job, they don't have any other tie to be sensitive to me. And so the best and fastest way to deal with this fear of ridicule is you must first form a meaningful relationship. That meaningful relationship is where somebody has emotionally, mentally, psychologically invested themselves in you. They have availed themselves to you. That already creates an avenue for openness. You have to know this, that truth in itself is necessary for transformation. But the atmosphere you create for truth can be the atmosphere that either destroys the person or repairs the person. So if you don't feel that person has built himself there, then you have to get going. Then secondly, now, not only do you look on the outside, you have to also, you yourself, you have to develop mechanisms of, I call it the gap between thought and action. That gap, the detachment. You cannot act out every thought or act out every action the way you feel it. That when somebody acts it, you think it. And when you think it, you act it. You need to create a buffer between your thoughts and your actions. Now, that particular buffer, you have to build it yourself. That you can get an action of somebody may want to triggers the emotion of anger, but you've created a buffer that, hey, this buffer is now where I break away from the action and from the thought, and I find myself. Now, developing your true self outside your, what we call the ego, whereby what people think, what people say, developing and cultivating an environment where you can find your true self is that buffer. It helps you to overcome the fear of ridicule. Why? Because you become the loudest voice in your head. And that helps you not to have that. If I don't have this buffer, if somebody says, "Mse uko down," you start thinking I'm down. If somebody says, "Mse you're handsome," you start thinking you're handsome. You walk 2 miles, somebody says, "By the day, and I'm so meanza kuchapa chapa." You start, it's as if there is no buffer between what action and thought. Or you wake up today in the morning and feel, have you ever gotten these people, especially those who failed exams? You'll discover they always knew they will need to read for exams. But to move from the thought, manze leo nasikia kulala, manze leo kuna njeve, to move from thought to action, they took so much time. By the time they wanted to do the exam, they needed an external trigger. What was it? The exam itself. So they went in there, they start seeing Abraham Lincoln walking, they start thinking of Judas betraying Jesus, because they're seeing colors.
Yeah.
So you also have to be able not to wait for thoughts for you to act, because you've developed this buffer here, which I call the true self. And in that true self is where you plant your voice there. So it is a form of detaching your thought and an action and creating this healthy buffer where you exist. It looks complex, but life is more complex than what I'm telling you right now.
What about those who would be, and I don't know if there is such a thing as validly angry.
Yeah.
You know, for example, talk about those who, let's say in a workplace environment, maybe you've been passed up for promotion, or your boss is mean to you, or things just don't work out the way you want them to work out. Any of these scenarios where you would be validly angry. So how do you deal with that so that it doesn't cross over to bitterness?
Yeah. Legitimately angry.
Exactly. Legitimate is better. Legitimately angry. It is in the law.
As according to.
Yeah.
Well, all anger should do is to first make you discover that I should never lose control, because all anger is battling for is control. And sometimes, like somebody has passed you over at the office, you may say, hey, I can only control how good I am. Trying now to manipulate events so that I jump the gun, I'll need to now I'll now be moving into bitterness, or lowering my performance, or lowering my energy commitment to work, simply because somebody played around and got what I think is legitimately mine. Because what makes anger more difficult is when it's actually legitimate, because that's what moves it to bitterness.
Right.
It's not like at you're just, but this one now you woke up,
not
you had a good day, you're not tired, I'm not a morning person, don't be talking to me in the morning. It's not those moods, it's not this mood, but it's where there is a legitimate action that justifies your anger. I go back to that true box, true self. Who was I before this job? And who was I, or who am I before all these things that have come to like want to define now who I am and what I want to be? Yes, a job promotion, I deserve it, but should I not be granted it? Will I now destroy myself to get back at the person who has treated me undeservedly? I now bring myself there to the true self and ask myself, what choice will I make in this box? If I allow somebody's misactions, because not everybody around here will give you what you deserve. Most of us are living and working in areas that way below what we deserve. We deserve better, but occasionally mostly people will play us, occasionally you will get what you deserve. I go back to getting yourself there. Always develop that safe and say, hey, I want it to be like, for you, what do you call yourself? You're a journalist or a media?
I'm a media personality.
You're a media personality.
Oh my.
Oh my. So that's what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to be it is not restricted to this or to this person. But do you know, one person can make you destroy everything about you, because your anger towards fighting for what you deserve, yet it's not within your control to take it, will make you start manipulating and mobilizing behind. Lunchtime bimekuwa slander moments, evening jioni ni manini. Kabla ujue, this thing has now hijacked you. You are now obsessed with vengeance. You are going for what you deserve. I always take this therapy that if it is mine, I take it like this. If it is mine, and when I'm legitimately, I feel, if it is mine, you won't keep it for long. I'll keep doing what I've been doing to get here. Soon and very soon, it will be served to me. Because if it's like food, you're at a hotel, order chai, na mini order kuku, then they bring the chicken to you. Definitely, you are not ready to pay for the chicken, so you'll say, it's not mine. And then the right person, it will be taken to the right person. So that's how opportunities happen. They may not come when you want it, people may try to block them, but using anger to compensate for them will make you get into trouble. Secondly, especially with occupational things, unfortunately for many of us, when we are angry, we never know that we can renegotiate. If you feel something is legitimately yours, find mechanisms of negotiating with the person who has power over it. Unfortunately, you have the person who can give you who has control is up here. What do? We go down here. Whenever you go down here, you're trying to manipulate. The solution is up here. So you have to work on how you negotiate for what you think is rightfully yours without showing disrespect, without showing dishonor. But if you don't negotiate for it and say, hey, by the way, Bish, I think I can do the job that you've given to Willis. And why don't you give me a try? Or I saw you gave something I thought I deserved to Willis. Why was that? So that I can, maybe there was something you saw. But you know what anger does? Once it has lodged in and it gives you legitimacy, it forms an ego, which is a created self, not the true self that tells you pride. Nenda kumuliza ka nani? Ngojea. Hii wiki. Nenda kuchocha wadhi.
Yeah, man.
Ratings zitakuwa to the lowest. Hata si share hiyo poster ya Monday. Na share ka nani. So what is happening? You're trying now to communicate, and that's not negotiating. That's manipulating. You're trying to create an environment, and then when you get what you want, you discover, I spent 2 weeks destroying. And maybe this person, maybe it never hit them the way it hit you that you deserved it. So you walk to them and say, hey, I want to negotiate something. Come in a spirit of gentleness and talk to them. The Bible says this, a soft answer always turns away great anger. If you come in softness and you come in that maturity, you'll get it. But you know, most of us, we don't take anger management skills. We don't take our, what we call our bathing of the soul well. So kijam saizi, tunakusikia uko third floor. We are here doing our interview, tunakusikia ukiwika uko juu.
Yeah.
Tunaenda commercial break because umeiva uko upstairs.
There's a guy here, right at the Ngosi, and I just want, he says, detach from that which is causing anger and pain and move on. So some of the people's, is that normally the solution? Like, if you're angry, do you just, those guys who say, walk away, right? And is that the same for, like, kuna ile you're having a fight, things get heated up, let me take a walk. Then there's, anger's become an issue, now I'm leaving the relationship. Anger's become an issue, I cross over the business, I'm now leaving the job. Is that always like, how do you detach without...
Yeah. By the way, detachment is not the excuse to quit.
Okay. All right.
Detachment is to bring you the presence of mind to deal
with
the issue. We are detaching, we are saying, hey, by the way, this aggression, we are now not communicating. So this aggression, let's all get back to a safe space. What is the core heart? It's not the excuse to quit. You made me angry. It's over, and I walk away. No, it's not the excuse to quit. And many of us have quit opportunities. When they talk about Michael Jordan, I learned this. I was watching his documentary, and the coach said the one thing about Michael Jordan is that you could get him angry, but you could never make him quit. And he hired a personal coach. And so when Michael Jordan played against you, he always, just like Muhammad Ali, he knew very well, if I can get you angry enough, I will get you so destabilized, you will move out of your true self. You will be so interested in hurting me, and you'll forget boxing is about points, not hurting the opponent.
Like Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, it's just points.
Yes,
points. Yeah. It's not hurting the enemy. Basketball is about points. It's not how aggressively, and the more aggressive you are, the less accurate you are. So it's not about an excuse to quit. So how do you, we are not telling you that when you're angry, that's the point to quit. No, when you're angry, it tells you there is a core need that is not being addressed. And maybe I feel abandoned. And instead of going through tantrums, naingia kwa nyumba, nimeka usiku, nimelala na jeans so that my husband gets to notice that things are not working, nimempikia cabbages na sijui nini. I can simply say, by the way, babe, I feel of late too many abandoned. Yeah. And you know, turning it into that simple word, abandoned, the anger is coming that I feel abandoned, or I feel as though you are so aggressive towards me. And is that something you can deal with? You see, when you turn it into that, the other person can process when it is now in the true, authentic self. Right. Because now he will talk to the true and tell you, oh, by the way, I think I've been having so much pressure in the office, it might be spilling over. But if I don't find the core needs, I'll just be looking for actions and trigger points. Bono me bang mlango. And why are you not helping the dog to bark? You know, you're looking for excuses to express, I'm disappointed. Maybe you really, really wanted something and I came late. So you are looking for excuses. Dogs are out barking at night. You are just seated here watching soccer.
Yes.
You're just looking for, but it's just a true self. You need to ask yourself, what am I actually asking for? If you find it, then you say, I was simply saying, I don't think you pay enough attention to me. And now when you bring it there, now you have not quit, you have dealt, you've detached from the mazes of the environment, the conditions of anger, and now you've gone to the exact reason. What is it? And then you calm down. Now, is it easy? Not always. Is it possible? Yes, it is. Not easy, but it's possible.
But it's possible.
Yeah.
And then so, what about for those who, you know, like you said, maybe somebody's watching like, yo, when mimi nishafika hapo kwa bitterness. Sasa. Na sijisikii kuongea na mse. There are those who say that sometimes you need to just, you know, go through the motions. Like, jiruhusu ukasirike. But then now pick yourself up. So now, you know, how do you, for lack of a better word, balance? Because like you say, there's that point where it's your true self. So what do I do to always
no, you're a big man, so yes.
What do I do to always make sure that umsewa hii kitu nafikiria good or bad naweza kuja inside I come to action. The side is true. If it's bad, hapo kwa true self niamwe okay. How do you make sure uko tu hapo? Is it something that you can practice?
Yeah, you can practice. I've come to discover that most of our anger comes from, because you're dealing with the fundamental word beneath anger is control. The overlying word above anger is authority. If you want to develop that skill of between how do I turn bad thoughts, how do I stop bad thoughts from becoming actions, and how do I make good thoughts become actions, is authority. You have to find an authority in your life. Do you know that many of us express our anger the same way we saw the authorities in our lives expressing their anger? If you're a father, or you're a product of a single mother, or you are that person whom you really, really look up to, slowly by slowly, you begin to take their anger expressing mechanisms. We come from a generation whereby when our parents wanted to argue, they sent us to sleep. And the only time we knew things were wrong, we would hear meze go boom, unashanga kwani kunaendelea boom, ukitaka kwenda kujua sikia welirudi ulale boom. So we never saw, but I see other civilizations that they allow the children to see the anger dealing process. So who is the authority in your life? So if you want to move to getting better control of your anger, you need to find an authority. That authority figure can help you, we call them father figures, can help you break that cycle and help you develop this true self and this true voice, so that you don't become the moment you're in. If the moment is hot, you're hot. If the moment is cold, you're cold. You have that true self that does not get contaminated with either thoughts and actions. You've developed it. So it's the best way to deal with it is you have to find an authority figure. It helps. It helps a big way. And especially men, if a man does not find an authority figure and he's trying to walk in authority by himself, most of the time he's walking in witchcraft.